Okay, welcome. My name is Stacey Flowers, and today we're going to be talking about how to start a business with no money. So if you're interested in that, please keep watching. I know for many of you guys, this is the first time that you've ever seen me, so let me tell you a little bit about myself. I mentioned that my name is Stacey Flowers, and right now I'm on a journey to become 100% debt free. And recently I've realized that one of the reasons why I'm going to be able to do that is because I'm an entrepreneur. And in me being an entrepreneur, my income grows exponentially. And because my income grows exponentially, it makes it much more likely that I'm going to be able to free myself financially from this incredible amount of debt, because again, my income grows exponentially month to month. But even beyond my income growing exponentially month to month, I've also been able to maintain a consistent income while working part-time. So for those of you guys who have no idea, I make a living talking, and I literally get to travel around the world inspiring people to create authentic, fulfilled, happy lives. I adore my work. I also talk all over the internet right here on YouTube. I talk on a podcast, and I talk on Instagram live. And I've been consistently for the last quarter able to bring in an average of $5,000 a month net in my own company. And that's important and that's significant. But I think the thing that really sort of sets it up or pushes it over the edge is the fact that I'm able to do that while maintaining a part-time schedule. And when I say part-time, I mean that I don't work more than 25 hours a month. And that is intentional, in part because I do have other sort of goals and intentions and things that I want to be able to do with my life. But for those of you guys who've been following me for a while, you know that I've made a commitment to work part-time and heal full-time. And that is healing mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and psychologically. And so I've been really fortunate to be able to do that over this last year. And now I'm moving into my second year of being able to do that, but also to be able to generate such a generous income for myself in me doing that. So with that said, one of the reasons why I wanted to create this video is because one of the number one questions that I get from people is, what business are you in? What do you do? How do you do it? How are you making this money? Et cetera, et cetera. And even beyond that, I think that some of those questions are coming from curiosity, but I also realize that a lot of those questions are coming because you have a desire to be able to create a business, and you want to figure out how to turn an idea that you have or a hobby that you have into a business that's not just a business for the sake of it being a business, but it's like a business and it's actually profitable and you're able to earn money from it. And you earning money from it, you're able to, you know, do what you want to do financially, whether that's you getting yourself out of debt like I'm doing, or it's you focusing on something else. You really want to be in a position to free yourself financially. And so I thought that I would come on live for the next 5 days. So today until, well, 6 days, today until next Friday, I'll be live, in part just to share just what I think it takes to build a business with no money, but also in part because I did create something for you guys that you have been demanding. I created the Business Mindset Manual, which is very similar to the Money Mindset Manual, except for it focuses on the mental shifts that you need to make in order for you to establish a real business, and a lot of the mental and emotional roadblocks that people experience when they're trying to have a business, which is one of the reasons why they're in a sort of feast to famine cycle financially, and they can't figure out, okay, how do I have consistent income? And not a lot of it, all of it boils down to mindset. Or they can't figure out, well, how do I monetize my idea in the first place? Like, how do I earn my first dollar? And 1,050,000,000% of it is mindset. So I wanted to start the series off with what I think needs to be done for you to start a business with no money. And the reason why I think that it's totally possible to do that, let me just put this out here. Because of the internet, like, the barrier to entry for starting a business is so incredibly low that when you see people say, oh, you can start a business with no money, they mean that, because you can start a business with no money. When I restarted the company that is now generating $5,000 a month while I'm working part-time, I started that without money. Like, I started that before I even had my part-time job where I was making $800 a month. I started it way before that. And I think that when you can open your mind and expand to the idea that we're living in a time in history when it's never been easier to execute our ideas and monetize them, then you can really begin to find your place in the marketplace. And If business is something that you want to do, you'll be in a position to be able to actually construct a bona fide company around it. So this is, I mean, I don't know what it would, if we would be able to have this conversation 10 years ago, but because of the ample amount of free resources that are available to, one, generate income, and two, actually the systems that are available just for you to build around an idea so that it actually is you can actually monetize it. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, there's never been a time in history where it has been this easy, where the playing field has been like leveled out for so many people. And so that's one of the reasons why I highly encourage people to do it. One of the reasons why I want to talk to you guys about it just before we slide into the second quarter of the year, because I know it's something that so many of you guys want to do, because you keep telling me that that's what you want to do. So what I'm going to talk about today is how to start a business with no money. And I believe that there are two fundamental things that must be understood. One, are there two essential skills that you're going to need to be able to start a business. And then the second one is that there is one sort of concept that you're going to have to master in order to actually start a business with no income. And even beyond starting a business with no income, what I tell my coaching clients is that, like, I want you to have a meaningful business. I want you to have a business that is purposeful. I want you to have a business that means something to you, that means something to every single person that you're offering to something to in the marketplace. And so these two things, part one and part two, that I'm going to talk about today, to me, are the foundation for what it takes to be able to establish any sort of business, but especially a business that's meaningful, and then a business that overcomes that feast to famine financial cycle where you can't have consistent income month to month. So I do see that a lot of you guys are commenting in the comment section, which I totally love. I would love for you, if you're having questions as I'm sharing, to jot those down inside of the comment section. What I'll do is I'll do this video and then I'll pop back on and answer literally all of the questions that you guys have. Like, business is probably my second to third. Business and money are pretty tied. Like, my first thing that I love talking about is self-development, but then money and business, I really enjoy talking about both of them. So I would love to jump back on and answer all of the questions that you guys have. So definitely put them in the comments below and I will come back to them. So the first part, or part one, to building a meaningful business, that you must, or you really need to master and understand, the two skills that you're going to need. Skill number one is emotional maturity. And then skill number two is economic responsibility. And I know you probably wanted me to start somewhere else with the dollars and cents, but truthfully, we'll be talking about setting prices tomorrow. Today, I want to talk to you guys about emotional maturity and economic responsibility. One of the number one reasons why people fail to execute their business or their business ideas, or ever successfully transition into being an entrepreneur, is because they lack the emotional maturity to be able to handle having a whole entire business. And if you don't have emotional maturity, and I'm going to break down what that is, if you don't have the emotional maturity to be able to have a whole entire business, I would encourage you to not take the route to entrepreneurship, because emotionally, the way that business taxes you is unparalleled to any experience that you will ever have in your entire life. There is no, and it's interesting because I would go to like business seminars or boot camps and stuff like that, and they would always compare business to marriage, and I hated it because I would be like, no, business is not marriage. There are no correlations, you know, blah, blah, blah. Marriage is sacred. And I would just always sort of have like this internal fit because, one, I obviously didn't understand why they were making the comparison, but two, I did not realize that, like, next to marriage or having children, like, building a business is the same, it's an equivalent level of emotional taxation, right? Like, when you think about like being married to a whole entire other human being and joining your life and sharing your life and doing all of the things, like, that's what happens when you decide to go into business. Same thing when you decide to parent another human being. Like, you are deciding to like embark on this thing that, like, no matter the books that you read, no matter the programs that you opt into, there are always going to be all of these surprises. And so one of the skills that I encourage anybody that I coach to do is to master their emotional maturity, because without emotional maturity, you will not be able to last in business. period. Like, you won't be able to handle it. The level of rejection that you're going to get as an entrepreneur, the level of criticism that you're going to get as an entrepreneur, the level of self-belief, the level of confidence, all of these emotions that you need to be able to generate or manage on your own. If you don't have emotional maturity, that is the reason why your income is inconsistent. That is the reason why you're not a full-fledged, confident entrepreneur, because you lack the emotional maturity to be able to handle it. And so what I define as the emotional maturity is the ability to be able to manage the negative emotions that come with being an entrepreneur, as well as generate the positive emotions that are necessary for you to be an entrepreneur. So in the business mindset manual, I talk about like 7 specific emotions that in general, I just think people need to have. I think you need to be able to generate self-belief. You need to be able to generate confidence. You need to be able to generate patience. You need to be able to manage criticism. You need to be able to manage rejection. There are 2 more that I talk about in the money mindset manual, or excuse me, in the business mindset manual. I'm not going to talk about them today because we just have a limited amount of time, but I do want to talk about a couple of the ones that I just mentioned. So you need to, as an entrepreneur, in terms of having emotional maturity, you need to be able to generate self-belief. That emotion of believing in yourself as much as you want your friends to believe in you, your spouse to believe in you, your customers to believe in you, your coach, your mentor, whoever. As much as you want other people to believe in you, there is no emotion that you need more than the emotion of learning how to generate self-belief. That is the number 1 entrepreneurial emotion that you need to know how to generate. And for those of you guys who have been following me for a while, you know that like my philosophy on emotions, periods, is that our thoughts create our emotions. That's it. Like, I know we think our emotions create our thoughts. I know we think, oh, I feel bad today, so that's why I'm thinking this. No. You feel bad because of what you were already thinking, and now that you feel it, you're just going to reinforce what you're thinking. And so when I say you need to be able to generate self-belief, what I'm really saying is you need to be able to figure out what thoughts you need to be thinking on a daily basis so you actually believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself in terms of being an entrepreneur, you are not going to make it in the entrepreneur game. And it's not necessarily because entrepreneurship is hard. Entrepreneurship, I don't know if I would say it's hard. I would say it's complex. And because it's complex, I think people confuse the complexity of entrepreneurship with it being something that's hard. But it's not necessarily hard so much as it's complex, and self-belief is the thing that allows you to be able to endure the complexities of entrepreneurship. So for example, like, you need to be able to generate self-belief when it comes to setting your prices. You need to be able to generate self-belief when it comes to creating a product or a service. You need to be able to generate self-belief when you like finally put your shingle out, and the modern day version of a shingle is probably like, you know, posting it on Instagram or posting it on YouTube or telling some social platform that you're now in business. Like, you need to have enough belief in yourself that when you put yourself out there, not only do you believe that you have something to offer these people that can actually help them, but the people, when they're listening to you, they believe you too. And most people who want to go into business don't have enough self-belief, and then they're like, yeah, I don't know why I'm not making any money. I think my stuff is good. I think it's good enough. I think it could help people. I think it's wonderful. It's just like, you can't think that your stuff is wonderful. You gotta know that your stuff is wonderful. Like, that's the level of self-belief that I'm talking about. Like, you gotta know that the amount of research that I put into, for example, creating the business mindset manual, the amount of research that I put into it, the 15 years that I've been in entrepreneurship, and the decade that I've been serious about it in terms of having legitimate companies, the 2 companies that failed, the 1 company that's succeeding, like, I'm taking that decade plus worth of information, putting it inside of a manual so people can review it and use it and glean what it took me a decade plus to glean. You guys can glean it in the 30 days that it takes you to probably walk through the whole entire manual. Like, not only am I taking that information and saying, yep, I know this is something that's going to be able to help people, but in addition to that, I'm also researching to make sure that everything that I'm talking about in here isn't unique and specific to me. It's also something that generally relates to other people. In addition to the research, I'm actually still yet working with a business coach just to make sure that the research that I'm reading is on par, to validate the things that I experienced in this decade plus work that I'm putting inside of this manual, so that you guys don't have to spend as much time as I did learning these lessons. But again, that comes from self-belief. Like, if I didn't believe that this business mindset manual could help people, I wouldn't make a plan to come on live to talk about the things. Like if I didn't believe that it was something that was beneficial, I for sure wouldn't be giving the content away for free, right? Like, and a lot of people, that's a question that I get a lot of times too. They're like, oh my gosh, you know, you give so much content away for free. Like, are you afraid that you're gonna like run out of stuff to say? And I'm like, first of all, you guys don't know how much I love talking. So I'm never fearful that I'm going to run out of stuff to say. But even if I didn't love talking, I'm never fearful that I'm going to run out of stuff to say, because that's how much I believe in myself. And self-belief, the average entrepreneur doesn't know how to generate self-belief. When you look at Steve Jobs, like Steve Jobs believed in himself so much that he, and let me try to tell this in a neutral way. He partnered with the inventor of the Apple products, and like partnered with him in such a way that he took the person who actually invented the products, because Steve Jobs didn't invent the product. Like there was another man who was tinkering, I mean, they worked together. I don't know, let me be neutral. They worked together to invent this product. Steve Jobs and his partner invented this product, sold this product. Steve Jobs was fired from his own company, turned around and built a company to lightweight compete with his original company, then decided not to compete but just to carve out his own like marketplace. And then when his company came back to him and was like, yeah, I don't know if we could do this without you, he didn't gloat, I mean, maybe he did privately, but he didn't gloat, he didn't huff, he didn't puff. He just was like, you know what, guys, I'll come back. I'll come back and do what I need to do in this company. But like, imagine building something with someone else and then getting fired from being the person who gets to make the overall decisions about that company. Like that level of rejection, like, but imagine getting that level of rejection instead of you like laying down somewhere and deciding that you're not gonna do anything anymore. Like you just go and build another company, and you build that other company in anticipation that one day you'll be able to be back with your original company. Like that's the level of self-belief that you have to have. I recently finished the memoir Shoe Dog, which if you haven't read it, I'm pretty sure other entrepreneurs have told you to read it, but if you haven't read it, that is an amazing book. It's Shoe Dog, but like if you read that book and you think about the obstacles that he went through to get Nikes to the marketplace, like they didn't even start out as Nikes. He used to sell Tigers. Like that was what his original shoe brand was called, Tigers. Like that just blows my entire mind. But again, I say all that to say these entrepreneurs that we love and adore now, these products that we're using now, they didn't get here because somebody was like, oh, I think that this is going to work. No, that person believed in themselves enough to put themselves out there. And some people put themselves out there by financial risk. Some people like me, I don't necessarily put myself out by financial risk, but I put myself out by making big, bold statements like, I'm going to be 100% debt free. I understand that I'm working part-time and I'm only making $800 to $1,000 a month, but if you keep watching, I'm going to be 100% debt free. And you guys have been progressively watching me move from making $800 a month working part-time for someone else to making $5,000 a month working for myself. That's because of my self-belief. I believe in myself more than anyone else believes. Even when no one believes in me, I believe in me. And that ability to be able to generate that skill is called emotional maturity. And the reason why it's emotional maturity is because I don't take my self-belief to the degree of arrogance or hubris or delusionment. Like my self-belief isn't so over the top, and most people who do great things, like their self-belief isn't so over the top that it turns into something that's toxic. And you can tell the difference between when someone's being toxic and when someone's not being toxic by the measure of the impact and the influence of the people that they're helping. Like it becomes toxic when I'm taking a skill set that I have, or I'm taking something that I want to do, and by any means necessary, I'm gonna make it happen. Like, no, like I have enough self-belief to make bold statements like, yes, I'm going to be 100% debt free, and I'm going to do it with the company that I built part-time. That's self-belief. Maybe arrogance would be like, oh, I'm going to be 100% debt free, and I don't care who I have to step on to make that happen. Like that's something different. And that's why it's emotional maturity that you need, because emotional maturity causes you to temper these emotions that could otherwise get out of hand. right? So you need self-belief. Self-belief is an emotion that you need to know how to generate. In the business mindset manual, I walk you through the process of generating emotions, especially this particular emotion, because it determines the success of your business. It determines whether or not you can take an idea and actually launch it and execute it. It determines whether or not someone's wearing your idea. Like the fact that we wear Nikes and the fact that right now I'm talking on an iPhone, I have an iPad in front of me and I have an iMac over there, like this, I'm using I'm holding in my hand someone's self-belief. Like it wasn't that it's like you have to believe in yourself first before you can believe in any of the things that you created. And if you think about the process of going from computer to iMac to iPad to laptop to iPhone, like there were other inventions that were in there. Like we don't talk about the iPod anymore, but imagine the self-belief that you have to have that you had this successful product, but you chose to stop that product and blend it into this. It's an amazing skill set, and you need that level of emotional maturity. So that's the positive side of it. You also need emotional maturity because I keep saying the number one, these are just all going to be significant and important. Okay, guys, we're just going to go with that. One of the major things that you're going to experience as an entrepreneur is rejection and criticism. And these are two different things. Criticism is just generally people saying whatever it is that they want to say about your work, good, bad, indifferent, whatever. This is just people talking about your work. Rejection is people denying their desire for your work. So you'll create something and you'll say, hey, I have a business mindset manual. You guys should definitely go pre-order it. But you may actually get rejection where people are like, yeah, I don't really want that. I'm not saying anything bad about it, but I'm just not going to buy this thing that you're offering. And as an entrepreneur, you need enough emotional maturity to be able to handle and manage for that rejection, handle and manage for that criticism. And most entrepreneurs don't ever win in business. Like, they don't get their idea off the ground because they can't handle rejection and they can't handle criticism. You guys know my philosophy on criticism is that I don't accept criticism from people who have not created equal to or greater than me. So for example, and I'm thankful, I do see some of my comment moderators in here, which is super amazing. Thank you guys for moderating. But you guys remember when I first started going live and people were going bananas in the comments. That criticism doesn't necessarily hit me, even if it's not in a live, even if it's just on videos that I post. Like so many people are like, oh, you're out of line, you're delusional, you're a monster, you're lying, this is never gonna happen. Like all of that criticism. But for me, I'm like, you guys are not doing equal to or more than me in terms of content creation. So I don't have time to process, hear, or listen to your criticism about the types of videos that I'm making, oh, this video is too long, it should be shorter. I don't have time to listen to that criticism. Now, feedback, I take feedback in all the time. Like you guys have given me feedback about integrating Q&A and content at the same time. And I was like, oh, I'll just separate it out since I like talking anyway. I'll be on here for another hour. So I'm 100% open to feedback, but criticism, again, unless you've created equal to or greater than me, it doesn't matter what you say about my work because you are not enough in the game to be able to say anything about the quality, the execution, the output, whatever. As far as rejection, I'm able to handle rejection because I know who it is that I'm talking to. I know who it is that I'm trying to sell to. I know who it is that I'm trying to share with. And so oftentimes what happens is an aspiring entrepreneur will be like, excuse me, I want to create a business and I have this thing that's going to help everybody. Say for example, you wanted to start a business as an influencer and you're like, well, I'm a universal influencer and the topic that I talk about is universal and it can help all people. And so what happens is you offer it to all people and bits and pieces of people start to say, no, they don't want your thing or no, they don't like your thing. Then you begin to feel rejected, and in you feeling rejected, you feel like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't be an influencer anymore, which that's going to happen, which is the reason why you need self-belief. But it's like, the reason why you may be experiencing rejection as an influencer who's trying to help all people is because you can't help all people. And as an entrepreneur, you need the emotional maturity to be able to handle that statement. But then also, the reason you can't help all people is because you're not for all people. And so for me, I don't feel like, in terms of rejection, the only time I experience rejection is if and when the person I'm intending to sell to decides that they don't want my thing. But if somebody who's outside of that says that they don't want my thing, I don't even experience that as rejection. But that is how I manage for rejection, right? So like I'm doing this YouTube right now. I'm talking about the business mindset manual. You guys can go buy it. There are men, there are women, there are people all across the board in the levels of their business right now watching this video. There are going to be some people who go right to my page and who purchase. There are going to be other people who are like, that's not really for me. I don't know. I'm not really 100% for sure. But there's going to be even another group of people who will be like, I would never buy a business mindset manual for someone who's in this amount of debt and who's only made this amount of money. And the thing of it is the people who would never, I don't even experience your never because you're not my target market. You're not the person that I'm trying to offer this value to. You're not the person that I'm trying to serve. You're not the person that I'm trying to support. You're not the person that I'm trying to help. So for me, rejection is tempered for me because I'm very clear on who I'm trying to sell to. And so the only time I experience it is when the person I'm trying to sell it to doesn't want it. That's it. Everything else has nothing to do with my business. But again, that's because I am emotionally mature enough to be able to understand the difference between being rejected and just, these aren't the people that I'm talking to. These are just not the people that I'm talking to. These are just not the people that I'm talking to. So Deb said, is the business mindset an ebook? No, it's more of a manual where like there are a couple of pages of like words and then there's actual activities that you do to like support you in like developing your emotional maturity or generating the emotion of self-belief. So like that's an example though. Like, so you see how Deb just asked a question. Likely Deb is in my target market. Why? Because she's asking questions. I know who the people are in my target market and who the people are not in my target market. But as an entrepreneur or as an aspiring entrepreneur, you have to be emotionally mature enough to accept, one, you can't sell everything to everybody. Two, even if you have this great, amazing, valuable thing, there are going to be people who don't want it, and that's okay. And for me, my benchmark is always one. It's always one. If I can help one person, that's all, like everything that I'm doing. I get that means I'm helping a lot more people. I mean, I get that I am helping a lot more people, but my benchmark is one. If one person wants the business mindset manual, I did my job. If one person wants the money mindset manual, if one person wants to come to my event, but that's my benchmark. One person lets me know I'm on the right track of serving the people that I desire to serve. And so my emotional maturity allows me to be able to handle the ups and downs. It allows me to be able to look objectively at my sales and say, oh, this didn't sell today. I wonder why it didn't sell today. Or people really like this, or I got a bad review, or I got a positive. My emotional maturity allows me to be able to handle both that criticism and that rejection. And most aspiring entrepreneurs just don't have the emotional maturity to be able to handle it. And that is the number one skill that you need to master in order to be a successful entrepreneur, especially if you have any interest in being an entrepreneur for the long haul. Even if you want to do it for the short haul, you're probably not going to get your business off the ground until you leveled up on your emotional maturity. And so in the business mindset manual, I talk about the 7 emotions that I think are essential. I talk about how to manage those, and I talk about how to generate them, because it's not just managing for the negative emotions. You also have to be able to generate the positive emotions. I cannot emphasize that enough. Self-belief, confidence, patience. You have to be able to generate that. Not your spouse, not your best friend, not your colleagues. Nobody can generate that emotion for you but you. And I talk about how to do that process in the Money Mindset Manual. The other thing that, the other skill that you have to master is the skill of economic responsibility. And economic responsibility is you taking full responsibility for how much money you earn. And it's a concept that's like it's like a sticky concept, because for the most part, every entrepreneur starts out as an employee first. And in you starting out as an employee, what you've been conditioned and trained to think about earning money is that I trade my dollars for this hour. So I get paid $22 an hour. When I work for an hour, I get $22. Like, that is what you've been trained to do. But when you become an entrepreneur, you are no longer letting your job be responsible for paying you. But what inevitably happens to most aspiring entrepreneurs is that they then put the responsibility on their customers, and they're like, well, it's my customer's responsibility to pay me. Like, I need my coaching client to show up today and pay me. I need everybody that I booked for a speaking engagement to pay me. I need people to buy my products. I need people to do this. And even that idea of like, I need my client, customer, whatever, that is still not you accepting economic responsibility. And I know it sounds crazy, but just bear with me. When you accept economic responsibility, that means you have decided that you are responsible for how much money your company makes. Not how many clients pay you, not how many customers you get, but that you are responsible for doing it. So, the way that I explain it in the business mindset manual is, think about the last job or your current job as an employee that you have. The CEO of that company doesn't say to themselves, I make money when Stacey goes to work. They don't say that. Does that make sense? Like the CEO, like think of, I'm talking like major corporations. So I used to work at a cafe, and when I worked at the cafe, the CEO was never standing over me like, oh man, I hope Stacey goes to work, because if Stacey doesn't go to work, I won't make money. Because that CEO had already taken on full economic responsibility for their company. They already decided that they are responsible for generating the income in their company. They are responsible for earning the money in their company. So the CEO never stands over me and says, oh man, I hope Stacey goes to work today, because if Stacey doesn't go to work today, then I'm not going to make any money. And it's the same way when you switch over into entrepreneurship. You don't want to stand over your customers or stand over your clients and say, oh man, I really hope I get 10 customers today, because if I get 10 customers today, then I'm going to make money. Accepting economic responsibility for your company means it means accepting responsibility for earning, but practically speaking, it's about putting the systems in place so that your company earns money. And you are responsible for establishing those systems that generate money. You're not, your client is not responsible to, it's not your client's responsibility to pay you on time. It is your responsibility to put a system in place that gives you payment. So I'll give you an example for people who do coaching. Sometimes when people have a coaching practice, what they will do is they'll be like, okay, I have a coaching practice and it's $150 to work with me as a coach. And so they'll put their shingle out and they'll put up their website and they'll be like, you can book me to coach. And somebody will book them to coach, and in them booking them to coach, they'll schedule the call, they'll do all of the things, they'll even get on like maybe the call for a few minutes, and then they'll maybe even give the call. And then once they've given the call, then they're like, okay, well, this is the fee for this coaching session. And the person who's already received the services are a little less inclined to give you the money after they've received the services. But in your mind, you're like, oh, it's fine if I go ahead and coach them and let them see the value, and then they can give me the money. And that particular format is very much an employee thought process of like, let me do the thing for you and then you pay me the money. But that particular format is not going to, that's not you accepting economic responsibility, because you're saying whether or not I make money this month determines whether or not this person pays me after they coach me. And so it's your responsibility to put a system in place that says, okay, in order for you to work with me as a coaching client, you have to pay me 1 week in advance of the coaching. And in you paying me 1 week in advance of the coaching, I have a system that tells me, okay, if I get all my coaching clients paid on Monday, this is how many people that I'm coaching on Thursday. That system is my responsibility for building. That system is what determines whether or not I make money. That system keeps me in the position of being responsible for my business. And most people are just not economically responsible for their business. You'll hear a lot of influencers saying, you know, oh, well, this particular brand partnership, they're net 30, they're net 60, they're net 90. And they're waiting for those payments from those brand partnerships to come in order for them to have income that month for their company. That's not them taking economic responsibility. Economic responsibility is saying, my company makes $5,000 a month. What do I have to do? What do I have to do, and what systems do I need to work on so that every single month my company makes $5,000? It's not, well, I have, you know, a $5,000 contract coming in 90 days. I have a $2,000 contract coming in 60 days. No, because it's still the responsibility of your vendor to pay you. You have to say, okay, like, and this is something that I do because you guys know I have brand partnerships. So if my brand partnership contracts are contracted out, like, I don't count that money. I don't count the money the month that the contract is made. I count the money the month that the money is sent to me. but I accept economic responsibility because I never let a contract that's gonna pay me $10,000 stop me from doing work this month. And it's because I'm economically responsible for my company. I say to myself, you know what, Stacey? It is your responsibility to generate $5,000 this month. Whether they pay you or not, you have to figure out how to do that. What do you need to do this month to bring in $5,000? And I ask myself that every single month to maintain this level of income. So one of the reasons why my income is incredibly consistent is because I go into each month with full economic responsibility. I am not waiting on a client. I am not waiting on a customer. I am not waiting on a payout. I am not waiting on anything. I wake up every single morning having accepted full responsibility for my company and decided that what I'm going to do today is going to generate the money that I need to make. And again, it's a mindset shift, which is the reason why this is called the business mindset. It's a mindset shift because it's hard to think like that, because as an employee, we don't have to think like that. As an employee, we don't have to wake up and say, how can I make $1,000 today? We never have to ask that question because we know that if we work an hour, we will get this amount of money. But if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you are no longer trading hours for dollars. And if you are trading hours for dollars, you are in a space where you are feast to famine quite often in your company. And feast to famine is just where one month is super, super great and the next month isn't great. You have to be willing to shift your mindset to a place of, I am economically responsible for my company. So what do I need to do? What does my company need to do this month to make this money? Not who am I waiting on to pay me, and if they don't pay me, then I'm not gonna get it. No. What do I need to do this month to make this money? And again, it's like when I think about the CEO of the cafe that I worked at, they were not like, oh my gosh, I hope Stacey goes to work today so that way I can generate money. No, they were like, Stacey is a part of a system. And so long as that system is running, this is how much money we are going to make this month. This is how much money we are going to make this day. This is how much money we are going to make this week. And until you can get above your business like that from a mindset perspective, until you can do that, your income will be inconsistent, you will be burnt out, you will be overwhelmed, you will be stressed. And that is the reason why the first two skills in terms of shifting your business mindset that you have to master is your emotional maturity, because you need to manage the emotions that are going to come up. But you also need to be able to generate the emotions that you need to keep going in your business. And then the second skill is you mastering your own economic responsibility, so you remove the dependency on clients and customers. Because here's what, your clients and customers can tell when you're waiting for them to pay you. And no, it's weird. It's sort of like an energy thing. Like, people are more inclined to pay people and give stuff to people who don't need it than people who are desperate for it. I don't know what that's about. Maybe it's just the icky energy sort of feeling. I don't know what that's about. But what I do know is that the more desperation that you have when you're trying to sell, the more icky McIck pants that you sound in your sellings. The less desperation that you have, the more confident you sound. The more confident that you sound, the more I believe you. The more I believe you, the more I want to invest in what it is that you're doing. So those are the two skills that you have to master as an entrepreneur at the beginning stages of shifting your business mindset. The other concept, and I've talked about this before when I recommended the book, The E-Myth, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. I cannot emphasize enough how significant this book. It was always relevant. It was probably relevant when it first came out, but it is incredibly relevant now because the barrier to entry to building a business is so low that so many people will take their hobby, put it on Etsy and be like, I'm in business. Or so many people will turn on a camera, start doing YouTube videos and start getting a little Google AdSense money or a little bit of money from brand partnerships. And they're like, oh my God, I'm in business. And you don't understand the fundamental core foundation of your business and the multiple roles that you're playing. And because of that, you burn out, you don't make consistent income. And at the end of the day, like, something that's really important to me, like, yes, I want to make an income, but I really want to make an impact. And a lot of companies never get to the point where they make an impact or they have real influence because you never really build a proper business. And so the way that Michael Gerber breaks it down in the E-Myth Revisited is he talks about the three primary roles that you're gonna have in business. And you listen, you guys have to wrap your mind around these three roles. When people are like, Stacey, how do you make so much money working part-time? How are you able to do it consistently? It's because I understand the roles that I play in my company, and my focus is on mastering those roles than it is on a tough lesson. I made the mistake of thinking that just making more money was enough for me to be in business. Like, I was making a crap ton of money before. Then I got sick and I woke up and I realized I never had a, I mean, I had a business legally, but I didn't have a sustainable, there we go. I didn't have a sustainable business because I wasn't managing for these three roles. And you need to manage for these three roles. So the way that Michael Gerber breaks it down is that you have your entrepreneurial role, you have your manager role, and you have your technician role. And so each of, I mean, I really, if you can get this, then you can get so many things. And I want you to get them because business is I love entrepreneurship. Business is an incredible way to earn income and free yourself to be able to do the thing that you are called to do. Like, for people out there who really, really, really feel led to be entrepreneurs, I just get this book, read it, and keep reading it until you understand it. Now, I'm going to break it down based on how I've synthesized it over the last few years of using it, but like, I cannot emphasize enough how important these three roles are. So your first role is the role of entrepreneur. When you are functioning in the role of the entrepreneur for your company, this is the visionary of your company. This is the person with the idea. This is the person who's like, oh my gosh, like, my cookies are good. Like, I totally could sell these and make a profit. That is your entrepreneur thinking about wrapping a business around an idea. The person who's just like, man, you know, I just like making these pictures, these paintings, and maybe if I turn them into screen prints, then I can sell the print. And you know, that's your entrepreneur ideating. So anytime you're in an idea phase and you're like, oh man, this would be a great idea, or somebody's telling you, man, that is a great business idea, like, that is you being an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is the person with the idea and the interest in making an income. That's the entrepreneur. Not only does the entrepreneur have the idea, but the entrepreneur also is thinking through monetization. The entrepreneur is also like, oh man, I wonder how much people would pay for that. They're asking those types of questions. And most of the time when people are entering into business, they're not actually entering into it from an entrepreneurial headspace. They're actually entering into it from a different headspace, but I want to talk about that one first because you need that person or that role. You need that role to set the vision. Like, in December, I sat down and I said, okay, these are my three roles. When I sat down with my entrepreneur, I said, okay, what products and services do we want to create in 2019? How much money do we want to make in 2019? How many people do we want to serve in 2019? Like, the entrepreneur role of me sat down and thought through each and every single one of those ideas, and I wrote them down. Now, the other thing that I do is I give my entrepreneur the whole first quarter to continue to generate ideas, because sometimes what will happen is that you'll let your entrepreneurial role think of different ideas all throughout the year. So that's the person who's constantly throwing out another idea. They're like, okay, I know I started a jewelry business like last week, but oh my gosh, I have this other idea for a clothing line now. And so now I'm launching my clothing line. And then they're like, oh my goodness. And now I'm starting my YouTube channel. And oh my goodness, now I'm starting a social media campaign. Like, that person who's constantly like launching different things that don't seem to connect, that's because their entrepreneurial role is tap dancing around in their mind, throwing out ideas. And here's the thing, your entrepreneurial role is important, but your entrepreneurial role cannot run the whole show. Your entrepreneurial role creates and generates those ideas and has an interest and a thought process for income. That's it. And you have to give your entrepreneurial role room to play. But you have two other roles. The other role that you have is the manager role. And this is the role that's the least favorite. Rarely does anybody start a business because of the manager role. Typically, we hire for the manager role, but this is something that you need to maintain internally. Your manager role is the person who sets up all of the organization and the time management in your company. So for example, my entrepreneurial role was like, you know, Stacey, you have a personal development company. We want to generate this amount, and I'm just going to throw out a number. We want to generate $500,000 in revenue this year. And we want to create 6 assets in the company, and we want to serve, 500,000 women this year. My entrepreneur decided all that. The role of manager has to come in and take the ideas that my entrepreneur has and organize them. So if my entrepreneur says, okay, we want to generate $500,000 in revenue this year, the manager has to come along and say, okay, what would we need to implement to generate $500,000? how many times, of the social platforms that are generating an income, how many times do we need to be posting on those platforms? The manager would say, if we created 6 assets, which product should we create first? Which asset should we create first? Which service should we provide? How many times? So for example, my entrepreneur would be the one who would like set the prices for my speaking gigs. So let's just say for speaking gigs, I speak $5,000, per speaking gig. The manager then comes in and says, okay, well, we want to generate $500,000 of revenue, and we have one service that we provide, which is speaking services for $5,000 a speech. Which means if we offer 20 speeches in the year of 2019, and this is all my manager is thinking through this, that role of myself is saying, okay, if we do 20 speeches for 2019, then that will generate $100,000. Boom. I'm gonna put a system in place for us to do 20 speaking engagement at $5,000 a year, so that way we can cover at least $100,000 of the $500,000 that we want to earn. My manager would also say things like, okay, well, if we want to do 20 speeches for 2019, when do we need to be reaching out to these conferences? What do we need to be putting in the pitch package? What do we need to be thinking through in terms of like the content that we're sharing? My manager is the one who's organizing how to implement the ideas that my entrepreneur has come up with. So my manager is responsible for all the organization. My entrepreneur isn't the one who goes, oh, we should do 20 speaking engagement. No, because that's stifling to my entrepreneur. My entrepreneur just gets to dream up the idea, and my manager figures out how to implement it. And I need you guys to understand that, because so many of you guys fail at business because you do have an entrepreneurial mind, but you never pause to manage it. You're just like, oh my God, I'm gonna be an influencer. I'm gonna start a YouTube channel. I'm gonna make, $20,000. I'm gonna get a brand partnership, and I'm gonna do this. And you never sit down as your manager role and say, but how many YouTube videos am I gonna post a week? How many views do I want to average per video? That's your manager thinking through the organization of it. The other thing that the manager does too is the manager does the time management. So in addition to it organizing the strategy to implement the entrepreneur's idea, it also does the time management. So when I decided that I was only working part-time, that wasn't an entrepreneurial decision. If my entrepreneurial role could have decided, I would be out here hustling like most people are hustling, working day and night, blah, blah, blah. But my manager was like, no, you're gonna work part-time. And I allow that role to decide that, because that role is the one organizing everything. So maybe if I'm working part-time, doing 20 speaking engagements this year is too much. So then my manager has to make a different decision. And my manager may say something like, okay, well, we can't do 20, but maybe we can do 10 and increase the price. But my manager decides how much I work. And too many people are letting their entrepreneur decide how much they work. And of course, the entrepreneur role with the ideas are gonna be like, work forever and ever. We gotta get this off the ground. This is amazing. You don't need to sleep. We love this idea. Of course, your entrepreneurial role is gonna push you into burnout. Your manager is going to manage your actual capacity to do and execute. That's why we need our manager. And that's also why most people never start a company from a manager perspective. Like, the hardest role that people tend to have when they're starting their business is their manager role, because rarely does a manager go, oh, we should start a business. No, a manager is like, well, I have this time on my hands. I wonder what I should do. But the manager role doesn't ideate. The manager role doesn't come up with new ideas for the company. It may come up with ideas for how to implement the ideas that the entrepreneur came up with, but it never comes up with new ideas. So that's a second role. But then, guys, you have one more role. Mind you, this is one person. You are one person fulfilling these multiple roles. And this is why people burn out. This is why people get stressed. This is why people get confused, because they don't understand that they have these 3 competing roles rumbling around in their body. And I would love to take credit for this idea, but I can't, because this is Michael Gerber's idea. This is just my perspective and my synthesis of this idea. So the third role that you have, because he says it different in his book, that's why I encourage you to get the original source, but this is how I see it. The third role that you have is the technician. Now, this is the role that most people start a business from. They're like, I'm good at styling hair. I'm good at making blankets. I'm good at doing YouTube videos. I'm good at um, delivering a message from the stage. I'm good at making slogans, so I'm going to start a t-shirt company. Most people start a business as a technician, as somebody who's gifted in a particular talent or skill, and this is this is not the level of starting a business. Well, okay, you should definitely take what your technician wants to do into consideration, but your technician is not the entrepreneur. And so the best way to see this is like, the girl who is amazing at styling hair, it doesn't mean that she's gonna be amazing at having a salon. The salon is the business. The styling hair is the talent of the business. So your technician role is the part of you that does the work that you're gifted at, the part of you that styles the hair. And you see this often where a lot of amazing stylists will be like, oh, I'm gonna open up my own shop. And then they're like, this is the most stressful, ridiculous thing. I make less money now that I have my own shop because I have to pay all these fees and blah, blah, blah. And it's because they didn't think about what it means to have a shop. Because if you think about it as a stylist, let's just say it takes you an hour to do each head. Max, you can do 8 heads a day. Let's just say each head pays you $100. That's $100. That's $800. I don't know why that took me so long to think about that. That's $800 a day that you can make as a stylist. I'm just gonna bring it to 5 just so the numbers are a little easier for me. Let's just say that stylist makes $500 a day styling for 8 hours, right? She works 5 days a week. 5 times 5, that means she makes $2,500 a week. And she's just like, oh my gosh, like my clients love me. I'm so good at styling hair. I make $2,500 a week. If I had my own shop, I'm pretty sure I could blow it out of the park and make a ton more money. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna open up my own shop. What happens is she doesn't realize that like your capacity to do more hair, you don't have a capacity to do more hair. You're already booked for 8 hours a day. So the business side of having a salon means that you have to have another technician, somebody else who knows how to do hair. And you have to charge that technician for being in your shop. But a lot of people think because I can style hair, I should have a shop. But that doesn't work because people aren't gonna come to your shop to get their hair styled by somebody else if they like the way you style hair. I'm hoping that that makes sense. And so when you're a technician, you have to understand that you are limited in the amount of talent or skill that you can execute. And because you're limited in the amount of talent or skill that you can execute, every idea doesn't need to become a business idea. And so many technicians, because their gift, their skill, their talent is so amazing, they try to wrap a business around it, and they don't understand that you can't wrap a business around you being a good stylist. If you want to wrap a business around you being a good stylist, you also have to be a good manager and a good entrepreneur, because the manager is going to tell you how many more stylish chairs you want to get. The manager in you is going to tell you how many hours those stylists are going to work. But you also need to be a good entrepreneur, because the entrepreneur is going to tell you when you should open up the shop and how much you should charge each stylist for the chair that they're in, and so on and so forth. But I'm trying to get you guys to understand that, like, when you are talented at something and when you are gifted at something and when you are super good at something, it doesn't mean that you have a business. It doesn't even mean that you have a viable business idea. It simply means that you are amazing at executing that particular skill, gift, or talent. And that's amazing, but in order for you to build a business, you have to figure out how to scale that talent. And most people don't know how to scale that talent. And so what happens is they put the burden on their technician to make more money. And they're like, oh, well, we're so good at styling hair and we just opened up this shop, I'm gonna pick up an extra day. So I used to work 5 days a week, now I'm gonna work 6 days a week. That doesn't make you have a better business. That just stresses your technician out. And so many people, their technician is stressed out, their technician is overwhelmed, their technician is what's burning out. Their manager and their entrepreneur role hasn't even been activated, because if their manager role was activated, their manager would have been like, no, you're not picking up any extra hours. If their entrepreneur role was activated, their entrepreneur would have been like, no, you're gonna find another technician, you're gonna find another stylist. And so the technician role is all about executing the talent, the skill, the gift of the business. So for example, my technician role has, and technically I have multiple technicians because I'm offering multiple gifts, but I'm just going to reduce it to just one so you guys can understand what I'm saying. So my technician, the talent that my technician delivers is talking, right? The role of my technician, that's the talent that I'm offering. When I built my first speaking business, I would only talk for income from the stage. So the only time I would let people pay me is when I talk from the stage. And so my technician was limited to the number of speaking engagements that I could secure to go speak from the stage. I also got burnt out because sometimes I was speaking on stages I shouldn't be speaking on just because I wanted to make money. Now what I've allowed my technician to do so that way I can have a real business is that my technician, the job of my technician is to talk. So I allow myself to talk on the stage. I allow myself to talk on podcasts. I allow myself to talk on YouTube. I allow myself to talk on Instagram. And I allow myself to talk through coaching. So that's 5 different places that my technician talks. But in order to give myself technician time to do that, my manager role had to set a schedule so that way my technician wouldn't get burnt out. So for example, I told myself for the next 90 days over on Instagram, I was gonna go live Monday through Friday for an hour. You guys here on YouTube can see that going live Monday through Friday on Instagram has dramatically impacted the amount of content that I'm delivering on YouTube. Now, that was a hit that I'm willing to take because my manager already figured out the cost of that. My manager was like, listen, we're not gonna go over our hours that we're working. You're just gonna have to take a hit somewhere else. And I was totally fine to do that because of the communities that I'm building and the long-term vision of my entrepreneur. And in order for me to be able to monetize my YouTube platform, my Instagram platform, my coaching platform, my speaking platform, my podcast platform, I have to be willing to invest in these platforms as the technician in a very strategic way so that way each of these platforms are monetized. But because my manager manages my time, I don't try to burn my technician out. I don't tell my technician, you know what, you was on YouTube first, so YouTube takes. No, I say, listen, as long as I get a video up on YouTube during this first 90 days, we are good. That's your new thing. Not as many as you did before, but you're good. As long as you do this, so on and so forth. So like so I say that to say my technician, the part of my role that I fulfill when I'm actually executing my talent of speaking, like I'm able to monetize it in 5 different places because my manager manages for all of those different places. But I'm also able to make a consistent $5,000 a month in income because my technician is able to execute on multiple platforms. You guys will notice my income was significantly less when I was only monetizing on 1 platform. Now that I'm monetizing on 5, I'm making about $1,000 each platform per month. I'm really hoping that makes sense because the role of the technician, the person executing the talent, like that is when anytime someone says I'm burnt out, it is because their technician is overworked and they don't have a good manager in place. Anytime someone says I want to give up, I don't think that this idea is going to work, it is because their manager is not in place and their manager is burning out. Anytime someone is in the headspace of like just idea over here, idea, and nothing is connected, it's because their entrepreneur is out of whack. But your responsibility is to get these 3 different roles in your mind and in a space where like you are able to fluidly move from being an entrepreneur and thinking about the vision and the overarching goal of the company to being someone who's in the manager role and thinking about the time in the organization to being the technician, the person who actually executes the talent. And so going back to our stylist example, one of the things that you will notice with great stylists who open up a shop is eventually that stylist begins to take on less clients and she begins to be sort of like a mentor or a tutor or a teacher, instructor to all of the people in her her shop, so that way they are styling hair similar to how she styled hair when she was the only technician, when she was the only person executing the skill or the talent. So that is the concept. This concept that like when you are starting a business, especially if you are starting a business with no money, which I think, I know it seems like it's a burden to start a business with no money, but it's a blessing because you are forcing yourself to be creative and think through what you need to think through. Sometimes when you can throw money at a problem, you don't actually ever address the problem because you don't experience that pressure and that tension. Like, because I didn't have any money to start my company, I had to figure out the difference between my entrepreneur, my manager, and my technician. Because I didn't have any money, I couldn't just hire for a manager. Like, I couldn't just be like, okay, all right, I need you to tell me. And it's funny because my last company, I tried to do that. I hired an assistant, and I would tell my assistant things like, well, you tell me what you think I should get done. And my assistant would be like, I think you're supposed to tell me what you want me to do. And I'm like, no, but you manage my calendar. You should tell me. And she would be like, yeah, I manage what you tell me you have on your calendar. But like, that's how out of whack I was. But when I didn't have enough money to pay someone to think about stuff that I didn't want to think about, I had to sit down and say, how am I fulfilling this role? How does my manager show up? What ideas do I have for my business? And let that part of me play and dream and do all, because that's the thing. Sometimes too, our manager will want to come up with our entrepreneur will want to come up with a really great, amazing idea, but our manager will be activated through fear and maybe not managing emotional maturity and be like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. That's too much. That's too stressful. That's too hard. That's too overwhelming. That's too all of these different things. And it's just like, you have to be willing to say, no. Listen, manager, you're not on right now. My role as entrepreneur is on, and what I'm gonna do today is dream. I'm gonna dream like I've never dreamt before. I'm going to take off any sort of barrier to me believing that I can do whatever it is that I want to do, and I'm going to get these ideas out. If I want to build a new popcorn machine, I'm going to create a new popcorn machine. Like, think about the computer and the iPhone and the iPad. These things did not exist, but somebody let their entrepreneur version of themselves play to the point where when it finally trickled down to the manager, all the manager had to do was figure out the organization and the time it would take to create that, and then tell the technician. And generally in your company, you're gonna have, the technician is one role, but you'll likely have multiple roles inside of the one role as the technician. And that's something that I'll explain at a different time because I don't want to confuse you guys. But the manager will then tell the technician, listen, you get to work 25 hours a week. You get to work 25 hours a week. I want you to go live Monday through Friday on Instagram. I still want you to put up a YouTube video. I still want you to put up a podcast. I want you to do this on your blog. I want you to create this. Like, the manager is the one telling the technician what to create. And the other thing that happens is sometimes the technician tries to tell the manager what they're going to create, and it's the manager's role to be like, no, you are making this. So for example, right now, my manager was like, you are making the business mindset manual. It is on pre-order for the next 7 days, and in order to promote it and in order to offer people free, amazing, incredible value, you're gonna make a video every single day for the next 6 days. My manager told me that. Now, right now, I'm functioning in my technician role where I'm delivering this free value and I'm telling you guys about it. But what if I like get off this live and then I'm like, you know what? I don't think I should go live every day. I think I should go live every other day because I got a couple of negative comments in there and blah, blah, blah. That would be my technician trying to override what the manager decided to do. And your technician doesn't do that. Your technician does what the manager tells it to do. So even if I don't want to go live tomorrow, my manager already told that part of me that you're going to go live tomorrow. Even though I don't want to go live the next day, my manager already told me that you're going to go live tomorrow. So it's like, I don't have to let the feelings that I feel in the moment when I'm executing shape any of my decisions, because typically what happens is like when we're doing it, it's the technician that wants the like, it's the technician that wants the validation. And if the technician doesn't get it, it tries to change the plans that the manager has or the entrepreneur has. And you have to have those other roles in place enough to be like, no, technician, let me tell you what you're doing today. These 3 tasks, that's it. So that's it, guys. That is the concept that you have to master, is understanding that as an entrepreneur, as a person starting a business, you are fulfilling 3 critical roles all at one time. 3 roles all at one time. And the other thing that you have to master from a mindset perspective is that the 2 skills that you need is emotional maturity and economic responsibility. The emotional maturity so you can manage emotions that are negative and generate emotions that are necessary for you to be able to build an actual business. economic responsibility so you don't put the burden on your clients and your customers to give you money in order for you to make money. You have, like, this is business mindset 101, and if you can't wrap your mind around these things, you're not going to be successful in business. And if you are met with success, you won't be consistently successful in business. Everybody who's consistently earning money in business and doing well, it is because their mindset has shifted to the space where they are emotionally mature and they've accepted economic responsibility and they have mastered managing these three roles. Now, mastery doesn't mean that you don't start at the beginning. I'm saying, like, you can start your company now at the beginning of thinking about these roles and over time master it. But I'm saying the people who are consistent, it's because they've mastered these roles, and they don't argue with their clients and customers. They don't argue with their community. The only sort of arguing or back and forth that they're having, they have 3 whole entire roles that they're managing for. That is where they have that back and forth. But you'll see that sometimes people will be like, well, let me ask my community how they feel about this and what they think. And that is a recipe for disaster. Now, don't get me wrong. You can ask your community what they would like to see from you, what they want from you, blah, 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 blah. But how do you feel about me going live every day is not a question I'm going to ask you, because it is a decision that my manager made to execute the vision that my entrepreneur told them. And when you get that figured out, you can set your business up and structure your business the way that you want it to be. And that's something that I want from you guys, for you guys. That's something that you said that you want from me, because you seem to be quite fascinated with my ability to be able to, rebound from such a massive business failure into me slowly but surely having this business success, and also me being able to exponentially grow my income, but also consistently have an income, and being able to do that part-time. And so this is 150 million% where I would start. So I do have all of your questions here on my iPad. So what I'm going to do is wrap this video up. This video is going to be up for the next 7 days during the order sales for the Business Mindset Manual. And then after that, this particular content will be lifetime access to any single person who invests in the Business Mindset Manual, so that way you guys can refer back to it and, take all the notes and all that jazz. Because I really want you guys, if business is something that's on your heart, like, I want you to win. And I wish that someone would have organized it this way for me, because people broke this down, but I had to go get this from like 17 million different people and pull it together. And so rather than sending you to those 17 million people, I'm just going to break it down for you in this. So what I'm going to do is pop off for about 20 seconds and then pop back on for a Q&A. So I will talk to you guys.